Welcome to Golden Black Radio Tuesday edition. It is June the 17th. Alan Karpick here from goldenblack.com. Dub Jellison, the new kid on the block, so to speak, will be joining me for today's show. Our new goldenblack.com staff writer, which we're thrilled to have, and we'll get the chance for you to meet Dub and know a little bit more about him. I want to thank our sponsors too, and that of course is the Purdue Federal Credit Union, Sand Valley Resort, and the good folks up in Wisconsin. If you need a tee time and you happen to be up that way, it's a great place to play. Dub plays a little golf. We'll talk about his golf game as well. And then, of course, East End Grill and Ripple and Company, two excellent restaurants on the Main Street in far end of Main Street in West Lafayette, and Whitaker Inn. If you're looking for a staycation, the great place to stay in West Lafayette. And of course, we appreciate the folks there that make that happen. Andrew and Elizabeth Whitaker run a great shop and have been great sponsors as well. So I'll bring in Dub Jellison, and we'll have a little conversation here about Purdue football recruiting. That's what Dub is, and basketball recruiting going to primarily bring to us. Dub, first, welcome to the show. I know this is the highlight, as I always say, it's the highlight of your media career.
Absolutely. I can't thank you enough for the opportunity to come and join you guys. I'm super excited to get going, and I know we got going yesterday, but I just love the opportunity.
Well, I hope you say that 90 days from now, but you will. It's a good group with Brian and Tom to work with, as you know, and we're excited to have you, to say the least. All right, we got to get we'll start with the elevator speech. Give us a little bit of background. Obviously, we know that Purdue people that have been reading Purdue sports have read you with Boiler Upload of the Purdue Rival site since 2022. But give us a little background of where you grew up, what kind of sports fan you were. I mean, you grew up close to Indianapolis from Noblesville, if I understand it right. But tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I grew up in Noblesville, as you mentioned. Grew up a Colts fan, Yankees fan, which I know.
You in Newbern. I know. I heard that. That's you got to start wearing the garb now. That's good. Yeah.
Yankees fan, Pacers fan. Those were really the main three. I lucked out with picking the Yankees just because it was the first T-ball team I was on.
All right.
That's going to be my team. We don't have a team here in Indy, so that's why I decided to roll with them. But yeah, I think like you had mentioned, 2022 graduate of Purdue with a degree in mass communications. Absolutely love my time there. And then, I had originally started a podcast back when I was in college.
Right.
In 2019, it was the Dub Jellison podcast. It's no longer in service, but that really got my foot in the door in the media space. And, I had a bunch of great guests on, met a lot of cool people, and kind of parlayed that into some opportunities in more written media and in the journalistic space. And that's how we kind of got here.
All right, as a Noblesville Miller, though, you did grow up a Purdue fan. Is that true? Because I'm sure your high school classmates, 2/3 of them are IU fans, I'm guessing, the way things tend to work in the state of Indiana. But talk about that and how you became interested in Purdue or a Purdue fan.
Yeah, a lot of it had to do with my cousins and my family. We were all kind of Purdue fans growing up, and I think at the time where I was old enough to really know what was going on with sports, the Colts were winning the Super Bowl. Purdue had the baby Boilers. It was a tail end of the Joe Tiller era. So it was a pretty good time for Purdue sports back then, especially on the basketball front. So that's kind of what got me into that.
Yeah, it's funny because we work hard to be as impartial as we can be, but I think now all four of us of the full-time folks are Purdue grads, and I think it is a good thing because you kind of know. I mean, if you grew up, you know who Curtis Painter is. You watched him play. Obviously everybody knows who Rob Hummel is, but you watch Lewis Jackson play. That gives you some perspective about as you look at guys. I think it makes a big difference as you cover recruiting because you remember other guys that were a big part of the program.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you guys have a much deeper knowledge than I do because
we're older. That's why. That's
going past 2007 gets a little shaky sometimes for me.
Well, it got shaky for Purdue football from 2008 to 2000, got real shaky till 2017. So when was your first, do you remember your first game in Ross-Ade Stadium and first game in Mackey Arena?
First game in Ross-Ade, believe it was in the Hazel era.
Oh, dear.
It was Ricardo Allen's senior day.
Okay.
In Illinois.
2013 then?
I believe so.
Right? Yeah.
And there's nobody in the stands, and it was blistering cold.
Yes, it was.
It wasn't the best first.
I think it was 20-16, and it might as well have been 3-0. I think it was just a bad football game, as what I recall.
Yeah, and then first time in Mackey, it was December of 2017, I believe, my senior year of high school. They played Valparaiso. So
very cool. Well, that environment is important. All right, you got to tell us a little bit about you. I mean, we know you had a hole-in-one here in the last couple of weeks. What do you like to do on a personal level? Are you an exerciser outside of golf? What is something that on a personal level that you like to do?
Yeah, golf is the number one. I try to get out as much as I can, although it's kind of starting to dwindle a little bit. My time I can get out there. Golf, and then working out, I like going on evening walks. That's kind of a big thing for me, going to the gym, things of that nature. And obviously watching sports, watching whatever's on TV is a big thing. And then just spending time with friends. Friends and family is really important to me. So if I'm not with them, then I'm golfing or just hanging out. So
well, you got to walk us through the hole-in-one now. Tell us. You probably remember the exact time of day, but it's recently. But that's always one of those things. If you've played a lot, you never expect it to happen, and all of a sudden, when it does, it had to be. But take us what the experience was for you.
Yeah, it wasn't what I expected, to be honest. I think everyone thinks when you hit a hole-in-one, you're gonna jump up and down and run and go grab it out of the hole. But it was number 5, hole 5 on Fox Prairie here in Noblesville on the central course from 174. And so I took 7-iron.
Good.
I hit it. And as I hit it, I said, oh, that's so chunky. Little do I know it's going to hit 2 feet onto the green and roll perfectly in. And it was pretty far, and I don't know if it was me and my buddies or what, but we couldn't see. I don't know if we have bad eyesight or what, but we couldn't quite tell. One of my friends said that it went in, and I was like, no, it didn't.
Yeah.
You roll up there, and I tiptoe up to the hole and pull it out, and I sat there shaking for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It was surreal.
Yeah. That's a good thing to be able to do it. And if you're throwing out a 7-iron from 174, you're hitting the ball pretty well. So that's good. That'll be a moment you won't forget from that standpoint. All right, let's talk some Purdue football and football recruiting. Obviously, you and Tom are out there yesterday, being Monday, for camps. You'll be out there tomorrow, and you've been out in your previous gig with Boiler Upload. But how do you assess kind of what you're seeing out of Barry Odom and staff, just in terms of the feedback you're seeing? There's been a lot of activity, obviously, in the portal, to say the least, but a lot of activity for the class of 2026, 27, and even 28. I mean, they seem to be getting after it. What's been your take?
I think. And it's something that I think we had talked about when he was first hired and you first got to be around him and talk to him a little bit. He seems like a Purdue guy, first and foremost, in my opinion. Just more blue collar and straight up, not going to BS you. And I think that's rubbing off on some of these recruits, as I talk to them after they visited or after the coaching staff goes to see them. I think the common theme for them has been, they're going to shoot you straight. They're going to tell you what it is, and they're going to be real. And I think kids nowadays really appreciate that. So that's been the biggest thing. And I know they've had prior relationships with the recruits. They're not flying in blind. But it is a little different when you get to a new spot and you're still getting your bearings, learning how to recruit those guys. So for all those circumstances, I think they've started to put together a good class. Still got a ways to go, and they still got a lot of names left on the board, but they're starting to get some momentum, at least on the high school front.
What is in your situation too, where these camps where you have a chance to talk more to the coaches and get to know them and other staff members? Just your impression of some of the guys that you always have different personalities involved with recruiting, guys that are really really gregarious and get after it. But what's been your sense in terms of Barry Odom's staff?
They've been phenomenal. Just in the chances I've gotten to talk to them, they're very well put together. But they're also, I had one recruit say they're put together and they're respected, but they're not stuck up.
Yeah,
not stuck up. So I think that was a spot on assessment. But I have a lot of respect for them and what they've all done in their respective careers, and obviously they're looking to do the same here at Purdue.
And being a Central Indiana guy, what's some guys that intrigue you the most that not only they're on the radar, but maybe 2 or 3 different individuals, guys that have committed and that they're looking at because it's football, Noblesville, where you went to high school, has become Indiana football. I think that maybe it's the Colts effect. I'm not sure, but dating way back, but all of a sudden, the state of Indiana football is pretty decent and certainly very competitive, especially at the level where Noblesville and certainly Carmel and Zionsville and Westfield on down the line. There's Center Grove, et cetera. There's some West Warren Central too that get football being played.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, speaking of Warren Central, they're going to be there tomorrow at camp. JJ Finch, their top guy. Purdue's one of Purdue's top guys as far as defensive 2026 targets. He's a very big priority for them. So it'll be interesting to see, if he actually shows up.
Yeah,
first and foremost, because sometimes guys have to miss team camps for one reason or another, and if they can continue their push with him. Keon Thomas is another guy from Warren Central, 2027 running back that I know the staff's very high on. Caleb Elkins, who I think is potentially going to be a national recruit. He's a defensive back for Warren Central as well. And then Oscar Sloan, 2028 quarterback from Center Grove. He's going to be big time. And we know the staff really likes him as well. So I think that, Indiana doesn't get its due as far as producing recruits, at least in football. We know about basketball, but there's still a lot of really, really good talent. And I think that this staff has put an emphasis on trying to keep that talent from leaving the state.
You look at the situation, Purdue's about as far down as it can get. I mean, if you look at where it was last year, and being able to, it's a fresh start, lowest of low expectations. I think it's next to impossible to predict how. I'm just talking about, of the 18-team race in the Big Ten, but Purdue's probably going to be a consensus 18. That's stating maybe the obvious, just based on where the Boilermakers finished last year. But how do you, when you talk to some of these guys, what's your sense of, it's a program? Indiana obviously had the year it had, IU that is. What do you think some of the pitches are to keeping these top level talent interested in West Lafayette?
I think going back to what I kind of mentioned earlier, when Barry Odom first got on the podium in Mackey Arena, he said, "We're going to turn this thing around fast." And that's been his message for the last, whatever, it's been 6-7 months.
Yeah.
Since he's been on the job. And that's what they're conveying to recruits as well. And I do think a big part of recruiting nowadays is the relationship aspect. If a player feels that this coach has my best interest in mind and I enjoy being around him, the staff as a whole, and the Purdue community, I guess, then you're going to have a better shot. There are some of the bigger fish, obviously NIL and rev share will come into play, which I think Purdue is better equipped for than they were this time a year ago. But I still think that that message of turning things around quickly and them being able to say, look at the last 2 years at UNLV, paying dividends.
Yeah, I think it's if you're a Purdue fan, you got to hope that that's going to be the case, and you got to hope you get off to a good start. That's stating the obvious. Everybody's guaranteeing these first 2 wins. Well, Ball State may have something to say about that, even though Purdue's what a 16, 17-point favorite as things start. But it's going to be important that they show some progress, and all indications are, at least if you talk to folks, it seems like that Purdue's in a good position to do that. Let's switch to basketball a little bit. The pleasure of working with Brian Newbert, and nobody covers AAU and Purdue basketball recruiting better, but you're going to be working this weekend, Charlie Hughes. Mm-hmm. It's a dynamic time, obviously, for Coach Matt Painter and company. Purdue's on everybody's radar screen, not only from a national perspective as far as what the Boilermakers will be like in 25-26, but also in recruiting. In your days of looking at that, what do you see, and and even Charlie Hughes this weekend, who, I mean, it may not be determined exactly who you're going to be, what you're going to be watching, but talk about just the general tenor right now.
Yes, Charlie Hughes, I'll start with that, seeing the jump that Luke Girdles made over the last year has been very impressive. It's reminiscent of what we saw out of Braylon Mullins last year. Now, I don't know how high Ertl will go in the rankings and everything like that, but he's just he's hit a different gear. Same guy, same player. He just hit a different gear, and he's playing his best basketball right now. So excited to watch him and see him in more of a team setting. Obviously got to see him last week or a couple weeks ago during Indiana All-Stars, and I know Brian's seen him with Indiana Elite as well. So it'll be good to see him with his Mount Vernon team. And then you got Noah Washington as the new guy that's on the radar out of New Albany, and I think he can be a national recruit, and I think he will be. I haven't seen too much of him, so I'll be excited to really get in there and watch him play for the first time and really assess him. And then you got 3 2026s that are at least on Purdue's radar, and Noah Smith out of Plainfield, Dikembe Shaw out of Crown Point, and then Karrion Berry out of Avon. So watching those 3 guys, 2 of them, Berry and Shaw, more of wings, and then Smith as more of a 4. But excited to see those guys as well.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. It is always a dynamic, like you said, dynamic situation where it'll be interesting to see when the dust settles, not only who all commits, but what direction Purdue goes with some of those guys, and whether they end up in a gold and black uniform will be a storyline. Okay, I do have to ask you another basketball question. You mentioned being the Pacers last night, and I assume I've actually fell asleep with 6 minutes left, and they were down, or I turned it off. Well, actually, I turned it off going into the fourth quarter. Said, I think maybe I had to get up early, and then I get back on, and they hit the 3 to cut it to 2, and then OKC runs out. But what do you see? It's going to be crazy, and obviously the Pacers now extremely uphill situation, but Game 6 will be a challenge. It's now obviously Pacers will be an underdog in that game as well. But it sure has been an interesting series and been a fun series to watch.
This Pacers team, I think all of us have kind of counted them out point this year after their relatively slow start. All the deficits they found themselves down in the playoffs and, have come up in the clutch. It kind of doesn't make sense. And my brain is telling me that OKC is probably going to wrap this thing up later this week in Game 6. But you can never count out the Pacers. Although I don't know what the deal with Halliburton is.
Yeah, his injury still. It's hard to know as of this recording. It's still seems to be a little bit up in the air.
Yeah, so that could throw a major wrench in things. But yeah, I mean, OKC's they're just so good.
So good defensively. I mean, it's hard to, but Siakam hits that shot. They got it to 2, and you go, here we go again, and then the turnover bug got him in really inopportune times.
Mm-hmm.
But T.J. McConnell was terrific too, and in the third quarter?
Yeah,
when he had the big quarter. The last thing you want to do is count him out. I know OKC got Game 4. In Gamebridge, and it'll be an uphill challenge. But I think you're right. The last thing you want to do is count them out, and I think it'll be a fun thing to watch down the stretch. Next Game 6 is Thursday night, correct? And then Game 7 would be Saturday. Is that right, or would it be Sunday? I think it would be Sunday.
Sunday.
Yeah, so if the Pacers can get that. Well, Dub, we're thrilled to have you involved, and we'll look forward to working with you and all your work. You can see it all on goldenblack.com. And obviously Dub is going to be very, very vocal on our message boards too, so we encourage you to do that. We also remind you too that you can subscribe to not only our podcast or on YouTube as well. You can write us a review, but we'd ask you, if you don't want to write a positive one, you can keep it to yourself. But, we appreciate all the positive reviews we've had, and that's a big part of what we do. And a reminder, too, that you can, for YouTube subscribers, get a $1 for 2-month subscription. Check out the show notes. There's a special code that you can use to be able to do that. So, Dub, thanks again. We'll look forward to everything, and it'll be an interesting ride, I'm sure, and this is a good group to work with. At least we tell ourselves that. So it'll be a lot of fun for you to have you with us on a full-time basis.
Well, again, thank you for the opportunity, and like I've told you, you guys are the gold standard. So I'm happy to just be a small part in that.
All right, well, you're part of us now, and we appreciate that very much. All right, we want to thank our sponsors, of course, Ripple and Company, East End Grill. And of course, Derek, by the way, I was going to say, where's Derek this week? He saw Yankees Red Sox with his family. He will be back next week for the Tuesday edition of Golden Black Radio, and we'll be hosting the show. But we'll also want to thank Whitaker Inn and Sand Valley, Michael Carbiner, and the good folks up there that with the U.S. Open this past week, everybody is in full golf mode. And it's a great place to go. We've had several subscribers go up and play it up there. It is. I don't know if we're damning them with a faint praise to call it the Pinehurst of Wisconsin, but there are a lot of great courses up there that are a lot of fun to play. Of course, the Purdue Federal Credit Union, longtime sponsor of ours, we appreciate them too. So stay tuned. We'll look for Saturday simulcast this Saturday, and then we'll be back next week. Derek's. We'll be back to join you or host the show for next Tuesday on Golden Black Radio. Have a great rest of your week, everybody.